This is the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast, presented by Massage Envy, the first podcast devoted entirely to Arkansas baseball. Featuring insight from Arkansas baseball color analyst Bubba Carpenter. Here's Matt Jones.
Arkansas coming off its first series loss of the year. The Razorbacks lose the final two games at LSU. They are ranked number 6 as they go into a weekend series now with Alabama at Baum-Walker Stadium, and they got back on track a little bit Tuesday night with a 16-3 run rule victory over Omaha. Matt Jones with Bubba Carpenter. And Bubba, let's start with that LSU series. Everybody said LSU was good. It was our first time to be able to see them, on what I would call maybe an extended basis, not peeking in at an inning here or there. And they looked the part. They got some really good pitching, and that lineup is really good. Arkansas wins a game there. I think that is a little bit of a feather in the cap for them to be able to win a game over LSU, but there's still some frustrations that they weren't able to win the series, and I just didn't think they played real well during that doubleheader on Saturday.
No, I didn't. After the big win on Friday night, I was hoping, it would carry over into Saturday, and man, I would have bet anything we were going to win that series, but boy, it just didn't work out on Saturday. But I was proud of the way they battled Friday night. I thought that was an awesome game, the way they battled Skeens. I don't think that team's going to lose on a Friday night the rest of the year, Matt. I really don't. Thursday or Friday night with Skeens on the mound with his stuff and that offense. So, I was jokingly saying that it's like if you're playing on a golf course and you birdie the hardest hole on the course, you feel like you gained one on the field, and that's kind of how you feel by winning on Friday night when you're facing Skeens. I mean, and I hate to, I'm not going to give him all the pitching awards right now, but the guy's got great stuff, and you couple him with their lineup they have, they're going to score runs. And so, I thought us getting a win Friday night was huge. Now, we didn't win the series, but it could have been. It beats getting swept. Let's just put it that way.
Talking about Skeens and them not losing on Fridays, I thought Arkansas had the perfect performance to beat him. And what I'm talking about is that he didn't give up much. I think he struck out 12, maybe 2 hits, 1 run. But I think the way that you have to beat him on a Friday is that your guy, or maybe in Arkansas's case, your guys have to pitch as effectively as he does. Because if you get down by a run or two with Skeens on the mound, you probably aren't going to win that game. And I don't think it could have gone any better for Arkansas from a pitching standpoint than it did getting Hunter Holland and Hagen Smith the types of innings that they did. But then on the flip side, that affects him on Saturday. Obviously, Smith is not in the starting rotation anymore, and they had to burn him on Friday, throw him so many pitches that there was no way he could come back the next day.
Right. Well, it's I refer to Moneyball a lot, the movie Moneyball. They lost Jason Giambi, but they couldn't go get another Jason Giambi. The A's couldn't, so they had to recreate him with 3 different players. And that's kind of what we've done. We don't have a Paul Skeens. I like some of our pitchers. We got some really good arms down there. We don't have a Paul Skeens, but we can recreate him with Hunter Holland and Hagen Smith. You combine the 2 of those and they're better than Paul. So, I think it worked out well for us. And I don't think there's a lot of other teams out there that can do what we do on Friday night. And, so like I said, I don't see them losing another Friday night game. Now, the rest of the rotation, if you can get by Floyd and Hurd and get to their bullpen, they've got some good arms down there, but they're not consistent. I think that's the key to beating them. And I loved our approach against Skeens. The first time through the lineup, it was basically 3 up, 3 down, and then we had Josenberger had the big double pass ball, and we ended up scoring on a sac fly to get the lead. I would have loved if that lead would have held up and we could have dropped the L on Skeens. As a result, they hit a wind-blown home run, and we go into extra innings. But I love how that all played out. But I think the 6th inning was key for us, Matt. They were able they worked the count. They got his pitch count up. They drew 3 walks, and they were all close pitches, but they weren't strikes. The LSU fans were screaming about it, but it was just great at bats by the Razorback hitters to get his pitch count up and ultimately get him out of the game in the 7th. And then, I think that was huge for us.
And Skeens had only walked 4 in 35 and 2/3 innings prior to that 6th inning. And his pitch count wasn't very high up until the 6th inning. They were able to drive it up into the 90s. I think he probably had to throw close to 40 pitches, maybe a little bit more during that inning. And it looked to me like Arkansas got him uncomfortable, not just during that inning, but also when Josenberger got on after that double. He didn't look nearly as comfortable when he got into the stretch.
I thought the same thing. He really didn't look the same. He still got good stuff, but he did. His body language changed, his rhythm, his tempo, everything changed when he got out of the stretch. And so, the key is get on base against him. It's easier said than done, but I really did like the way we battled him. After we went through and we all saw him one time through the lineup, I thought our bats got way better against him.
The weather made it to where they had to play a doubleheader on Saturday. And doesn't it seem, Bubba, like so many times that the first game of a doubleheader really kind of predicts how the second game is going to go? Like in what I'm talking about is in the case of this last weekend series, LSU's bats got really hot in that first game on Saturday, and then it just continued that night. It seemed like when they won that first game on Saturday, Arkansas might have had a little bit of an uphill climb in game 3.
I think so, and that ballpark suits their lineup perfectly. The wind's blowing out, the ball's flying. They got guys that can barrel balls up. I mean, it's a perfect scenario for LSU and their offense. Yeah, I think we play here at Baum Walker with that south wind blowing in. I think it might be a different result, but it is what it is. But I thought the fact that we went down there and took 2 out of 3. I mean, at LSU early in the year, we're not where we want to be, and honestly, right now, Matt, and it pains me to say this, LSU is a better team than we are. All right, but we're in March. We don't want to be at our best right now. We want to be in our best in June. And so I'm not worried about it. But they're a good team. They've thrown a bunch of good players together and some good arms, and they're playing well right now.
I wanted to ask you about that because Dave Van Horn was talking about that after the doubleheader. He said, something along the lines of, this shows us what we need to do to compete with a team like LSU. How far ahead do you think LSU is of Arkansas right now? And what do you think the things are that the Razorbacks need to do to be able to get to that level to compete with the LSUs of the world and teams that are like them come postseason?
Well, I think Friday was kind of a roadmap for that. The way Hunter Holland and Hagen Smith shut their lineup down. I mean, first of all, you got to throw strikes. You got to pitch to both sides of the plate. You can't leave balls over the middle of the plate against their lineup. We can do that, and we have multiple guys that can do it. If I would love to have seen Will McIntyre at the top of his game, throwing that fastball down in the zone, cutting it, sinking it, changing speed, just moving the ball around a little bit to see if he could have got a lot of quick, 1-2 pitch outs, because they're an aggressive team, but he left the ball up. But I think Friday shows us a lot about how you can beat them. And but we just have to have a little more depth out of the bullpen, because they can hit up and down the lineup. There's not a weak link in their lineup, and it showed on Saturday.
We've heard a lot of, talking about LSU for a minute, we've heard a lot about this team, and especially the two most notable players on the team, Cruz and Skeens. I mean, you go back to last week, you and I were talking about Jim Schlossnagle's comments when he said that Skeens is pitching in the wrong league. You got to be pitching in the American League or the National League. Dave Van Horn, after they played them on Friday, said that he thought Skeens had the best arm that he's seen at this level. He clarified that, said doesn't mean he's the best pitcher that he's ever seen, just in terms of raw ability and liveliness in that arm. Jay Johnson, the LSU coach, I was listening to him speak after the doubleheader on Saturday. He said that he thinks Dylan Cruz is the best baseball player that he's ever seen at the college level. He said it was one of the reasons that he went to LSU, knowing that he would get to coach Cruz for 2 years there. They're probably going to be 1 and 2 in the MLB draft. Cruz is probably going to be the number 1 pick. Skeens will probably be number 2. That could flip. It could change later in the year. I just wonder, though, you played pro ball. You've seen what great, professional baseball players look like. How good are those two in terms of maybe some of these comments that have been made about them the last couple of weeks? Are they 2 of the best college players ever? Like it seems the comments would lead you to believe.
Well, when it comes to Skeens, I wouldn't say that yet. He's got a great arm, but you get to the big leagues, a lot of guys have great arms. Everyone's throwing 100 right now in the major leagues. It seems like, So, and I watched Paul pitch against us, Paul Skeens, and he threw some balls over the middle of the plate. Major league hitters aren't going to miss those pitches. Um, so I'm not going to crown him the best college pitcher of all time yet. He's got great. I agree with DVH. He's got a great arm. I mean, I want to say he threw Stovall a fastball at 103, and it was just an easy 103. Um, but when it comes to Dylan Cruz, that guy's the real deal. I mean, I've watched his swing. I've kind of broken his swing down. There's not a lot of holes in there. I think the only way to get Dylan Cruz out is to throw him two seam fastballs in. That might be his only weakness. And I think if you throw him too many in there, he's going to make the adjustment and hit over the left field fence. But the guy's just, I love his approach at the plate. He knows what he's looking for. He doesn't mind hitting with two strikes. If he doesn't like the pitch, he doesn't swing. He rarely expands the zone. I mean, he's so advanced at the plate, just in his approach. And then in the field, and he's got speed. He's got a good arm. He takes good routes to the ball. I mean, everything you want from a major league center fielder, you get from Dylan Cruz. But as far as just a pure hitting tool, it's impressive.
I don't know if I've ever seen a hitter who was as hot for a weekend as Cruz was. He came into the series, Bubba, with a 515 average, and he leads with a 538 average. And even on the plays where it looked okay, now you're going to get a ground ball out against him, he'd beat out what would be a routine ground ball for a lot of other batters. It was an incredible hitting display, I thought, from him.
Yeah, it was. And like you said, we made a few good pitches on him, some fastballs hard in, and he got jammed. He got beat a little bit and beat him in the ground, but he just gets down the line so fast, and he's just got a fast motor. I mean, everything about him. It's just fun to watch. And I love watching good baseball players. I love watching good baseball players play the game the right way, and he checks all the boxes.
What were your thoughts of Tommy White?
I think all the gold around his neck's weighting him down a little bit. Look, I think I don't know. I saw everyone talking about Tommy White and Dylan Cruz. I don't think you can put them in the same sentence. I'm sorry. They're not even close in my book. Tommy White has a lot of holes in his swing. Now, if you make a mistake, he'll hurt you. But he can be pitched to. He can pitch to. You can pitch to him easily. Several holes in his swing. You can get him to chase up in the zone. You can get him to chase sliders down. I mean, I don't know how many sliders he chased down in the zone. Especially Friday night. I mean, Hunter Holland, Hagen Smith had him rattled. But you make a mistake to him, he's going to hurt you. So when I see those two mentioned in the same sentence, it just disgusts me because there's no comparison whatsoever.
I was watching him. He plays with a level of swagger that I did not think you would like. I almost texted you about that during the games. You mentioned there's not a hole in LSU's lineup, and I thought the same thing. I mean, there's some times where obviously Holland and Smith pitched him well on Friday, but it's like it's a relentless lineup. You get to 7, 8, 9, and it's a drop off from hitters like Cruz, obviously, but they're still really capable hitters that they have down there at the bottom. And I thought that was one of the big contrasts between LSU and Arkansas, is that it does feel like there's a little bit of a hole at the bottom of Arkansas's order. John Bolton, he gets on base some. I think he's got a long on base streak, or maybe it ended in Baton Rouge. But he'd gotten on base every game for the first several weeks of the season. At catcher, Parker Rowland and Hudson Polk, neither of them have really broken out offensively, although Rowland had a big hit there in LSU. What do you think Arkansas needs to do to maybe patch up that hole in the 7, 8, 9 area? Because 1 through 6, Arkansas, I think, is probably as good as LSU, or right there, just maybe a notch below. But 7, 8, 9, there were a lot of instances this last weekend where those hitters would come up, and you might have 2 or 3 on base, and the inning ends, and that might have been the difference between being able to take a series like that.
Yeah, well, it's still early though, Matt, and I'm a glass half full guy. I've watched John Bolton have some good at bats. The same Hudson Polk. He's had some good at bats. He's had some really bad ones. I think Parker Rowland, I mean, I always feel like when Parker's up there, we got a chance to do something good. He's had some really good at bats. He's had some 8, 9 pitch at bats that he's resulted in a base hit. I think the deal with John is is, he had some, I think it was more glaring on the weekend because he had some bad at bats against LSU, against some really good arms.
Mm.
Probably hadn't seen a whole lot of that. Of course, he faced Razorback pitching all fall and early spring. So, I mean, he's seen it. But you're right. There might be some holes there, but you have to weigh it. At what point, is the value of driving in a run versus giving up a run? You know, can we afford to take John Bolton out of the lineup and put a Harold Cole in there? Not that Harold's bad on defense. It's just, who's going to give you the best chance? Because look, if you go out and you make a great play on defense, or even 5 routine plays, turn a couple of double plays, you're saving 3 or 4 runs, and you go up to the plate and you drive in 2. Well, you're still in the plus column, or if you don't drive in a run, you know what I'm saying? It's all about what's the best formula for, saving a run is just like driving in a run. And so you got to figure out the best formula. And I don't know if DVH is quite sure where we're there yet.
One of the other things that I think contributes to getting a consistent lineup is they've still got to figure out third base. Harold Cole played a couple of games against LSU. Caleb Cali came in and played the finale. Caleb had a really good at bat that led to a 2-run, I believe it was a double during the early innings, maybe the 3rd inning of the finale. Also had he drew a walk with the bases loaded during the 1st inning of that game. Yeah, but he had a little bit of a misplay, I think, at third base defensively. Cole was kind of the same way. I don't think he got a hit, but he got robbed of a hit on a scorcher at Tommy White at third base. His defense is just kind of so-so, I feel like, at third base. Where do you think we are at third base, and who's going to step up and take that position?
Oh, that's a great question, Matt. I wish I wish I had the answer to that. There's a lot of options. I mean, you look at all the guys and Harold Cole's done a good job. Look at Peyton Holt. Had Peyton Holt not strained his hamstring, he would have probably been starting, Friday against LSU. Peyton's another guy that when he got a chance, he did a good job out there. Made all the plays, got some hits. I know DVH. I thought he showed a lot of range at third. Probably the most range that we've got at third base comes from Peyton Holt. But him pulling his hammy and then missing, and then Harold Cole gets a chance. He gets some big hits, make a couple plays. I wish I had an answer to that question. It's wide open right now, and I think DVH is waiting for someone to really take charge of that position now. Against Omaha, Reese Robinette got to start at third base. Now, it'd be nice to have Reese's bat in the lineup, but then, and I know he's played a lot of third base coming up. He's played mostly, I think, first base, fall and spring and scrimmages, but he's played third base coming up in high school and showcase ball. And so we know he can play third base. It's just finding that right person to step up and get it done. And it just, we're 2 weeks into SEC play, so there's still a lot of baseball left to play. But I think what we see right now is not what we're going to see in May.
Do you think Ben McLaughlin might factor into this now that he's back and healthy?
He could. I tell you, I love the way he swings a bat. I hated that he hurt his knee. There's something about his swing. I just love it. And he just has a knack for getting the barrel on the ball. I don't know. He could be a guy. I mean, he could be a guy that could get a chance out there once he's 100% healthy.
Yeah, he won the Gold Glove Award at the JUCO level last year. So we know that he can field over there at third base. Also played some first there. Brady Slavens has played some third base. Maybe, who knows? Maybe he ends up at third base. It would surprise me if that was the case, but he hasn't looked bad in the opportunities that he's gotten at third base. It's really interesting to me that we're this deep into the season and there's not a front runner yet. Like a lot of times there will be position battles still going on at this time of year, but you kind of have a feeling of who's going to take over. And it feels to me like third base is still as wide open right now as it was at the start of the year.
Well, I think you're 100% right. But now you mentioned Brady Slavens going to third. Then you weaken first base because I think Brady's your guy at first base. You talk about saving runs.
At picking.
He picks so many balls at first base, and I mean that saves a lot of runs. That's something that doesn't go in the scorebook. But boy, the fact that he's able to pick, and not just the routine one. He makes some hard picks, backhand, forehand, everything. We've broken down his ability to to make that play. And boy, that saves a lot of runs. So you hate to take him off. He could play third, but I hate to take him off first base because I think you're weakening that side of the field when you do that.
I'm glad you mentioned this because I wanted to bring up a play that I thought was really key to the game. I think it was the first game Saturday, but it might have been the second game. I can't remember which one. There was a lot of baseball. But Slavens, makes a play on a ball, throws it to the bag at second. Bolton, the shortstop, is covering, and it looks like it's a 3-6-3 double play to get out of the inning, or maybe get the runners off of the bags. I can't remember if it was going to be the third out or the second out of the inning. Then all of a sudden, that play's overturned. They've got a runner in scoring position. They score. The floodgates open, and the game gets away from Arkansas. I was listening to Dave Van Horn talk before the game Tuesday night with Phil on the Razorback Sports Network. And he was talking about there's just some little subtle things that are going on in the infield right now, whether it be, throw to second that just isn't crisp enough, or, just very little things that the infielders need to do that they're working with them with right now to make that infield play just a little bit stronger. I wonder what you've seen there. And you mentioned Slavens. I thought that was a great example of his defensive ability to even have the wherewithal to throw it to second and be able to get back to the bag at first and even have an opportunity at that double play. A real good indication of what kind of defensive player he is there.
Yeah, well, I like the fact that he wasn't scared to make that throw. At the time, I was watching the game on TV, and they even talked about it on the TV broadcast. I want to say Ben McDonald said something about it. It would have been real easy for him to just take that ball and go to first, get the easy out, but he took a chance and to try to get that lead runner. But it's the little things, Matt. And once again, they're things that don't go in the scorebook. They don't go down as an error, but maybe a ball hit to the third baseman, just one little bobble. And then he throws the second. Instead of a 5-4-3 double play, it's just 5-4. The runner's safe, and the inning continues. And we've seen a lot of those happen. And they're little things that's just, a few frames of a camera. But that's the difference in the double play and not getting the double play. Double play, you're off the field, ready to hit. And it makes a difference. And I think once we get those things cleaned up, it'll be things are going to start to work out for us. And look, we got spoiled last year, and I hate to even bring it up, but we got so spoiled last year because we had an infield defense that we'll never see again at Arkansas. So we got to quit comparing last year to this year. But I mean, there's a few things that once we get it put together, get the little kinks worked out, I think we'll be fine. But I think it shows our depth, though. There's so much depth over there on the bench. We just need guys to step up. And another guy we haven't even mentioned is Jason Jones. I still love Jason Jones at the plate. Every time he steps up to the plate, I mean, I'm locked in. We just have to find him a position on the field. And maybe down the road, it might be first base. I don't know. I see Reese Robinette eventually being the first baseman, possibly Jason Jones being the third baseman. Who knows? Ben McLaughlin maybe next year. Who knows going to step up and take it. But, man, there's so many options over on the bench. It's just – it's just a matter of time. I say all the time, cream rises to the top. So someone's going to step up, take charge of that position.
It seems like the left side of the infield is more shaky right now than the right side, wouldn't you say?
I think so. And I love Harold Cole. I really do. I watch him take BP, Matt, and boy, the ball jumps off his bat. He's one of those guys, when he hits the ball, it's a pure sound. Whether he's driving it to right field, driving it to left field, it's a pure sound off the bat. And certain guys have that, and some guys don't. Jared Wagner has that. When he hits it, it's a different sound. But if Harold Cole, at some point, DVH may give him a shot at shortstop, because we know he can swing it for sure. It's just a matter, can he make that consistent routine play that saves runs.
One more thing on Slavin's defense, Bubba. The back pick that he and Parker Rowland called to get an out during the first game of the series, the first game of the series. It was on Friday. It was a real big moment in that game. I think it was the seventh inning. Braden Jobert got picked off at first base with 2 on and 2 out, and it ended the top of the seventh inning, kept Arkansas ahead 1-0. Dave Van Horn said that was all Slavens and Rowland calling that. Having a veteran like Slavens really helped in that situation. He said, take me through, because I know you played a little bit of first base. Take me through the process of calling a back pick like that. What are you looking for from the base runner?
Well, you're looking for a guy, first of all, that's getting lackadaisical at first base, getting maybe one step or even a half step too far. If they're mistiming their secondary, and it sounds crazy to say that we talk about mechanics and timing and all that, but if he's mistiming his secondary and he's in the wrong spot as the ball goes into the zone and he's just a little bit late getting his plant foot down, you can pick him, even if he's not way off the base. So it all comes down to timing and footwork with running the bases. Some guys are just off the base and they're easy. That's low hanging fruit. But some guys, when they're shuffling off, they shuffle late, believe it or not. The right foot's not on the ground yet as the ball's getting into the zone. Those are easy picks. And so I think it was awesome because that was huge right there. That got them out of an inning. Could have been, I think runners were at first and second at the time. I don't remember who was up. I don't remember who was hitting at the time, but I mean, that's huge right there. And that got them out of the inning. So, tip of the cap to those guys for calling that. And I loved Parker Rowland throwing from his knees.
Yeah.
A catcher that can pick from his knees like that, because the base runner, he doesn't see it's different when a catcher picks from his knees versus jumping up and throwing. So it's a real good weapon that he has back there, and it came up huge in that game.
So, I mean, like as a catcher, are you constantly looking at your infielders in that situation? And how do is there a sign that a first baseman gives him? I mean, how do you guys know that you're gonna make a back pick in that situation?
Well, there's a lot of them. I don't want to say on here because I don't want to accidentally say what their sign is. I mean, I don't know, but you've got different cues. Like I had signals that I would give my catcher, and if he wanted to pick to me, there were little signs, and so you're constantly watching.
Okay.
And look, you get in a situation like that. If you're at this level, you're looking. I call it finding a weak link. We don't want to pitch to that guy with 2 runners on and 2 outs. Let's find the weak link on the base. If we can pick somebody off in the inning, let's do it. And so you've kind of got a heightened awareness anyway of, okay, we can get this guy. And it might be something you see the time before, or it might be something that you see on video, from the week prior series where they were playing, and you're like, oh, when that guy gets on first base, he's a guy we can pick. I mean, there's so much scouting involved right now, Matt. It's awesome. I love it. I love those little parts of the game that go unnoticed by a lot of people, because those little things are the thing that make the difference. And that's what, once again, that's why DVH is so good, is he pays attention to those little things, and he teaches the guys to pay attention to those little things, and the little things add up to big things, and they win games.
And we're going to talk more about that in just a minute, just in terms of him picking the right pinch hitter with Reese Robinette in that first game. One other note on game one, LSU had 2 outs on the bases. Of course, Trey Morgan came home on a wild pitch that really wasn't that wild, and that was a big play that allowed Arkansas to keep a lead in the 4th inning. And it was really LSU's only scoring opportunity until that play in the 7th that we talked about. Jay Johnson, after the game, was really frustrated with the base running. He said that LSU's base running has been great this season. Not good, his words, great this season. And he was frustrated to see that happen in the first game. I want to tell you the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast is sponsored by Massage Envy, voted the best day spa and the best massage in all of Northwest Arkansas. You can visit Mike and his staff in Tuscany Square at 2603 West Pleasant Grove Road in Rogers, or in Fayetteville at 3557 North Shiloh Drive. Massage Envy has services for everyone. MassageEnvy.com.
Massage Envy, with clinics in Rogers and Fayetteville, has been awarded Northwest Arkansas's Best Day Spa and Best Massage. One of the reasons is our care for athletes, both serious and recreational. We now offer rapid tension relief sessions using a high-caliber vibrating tool and total body stretch sessions like the ones used by the PGA. Both of these new services can be combined with the always popular deep muscle treatment. So whether you compete or just want to relax, there is no place better than Massage Envy.
WholeHogSports.com has the largest, most experienced staff of reporters covering sports in Arkansas. Football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. You'll find it at WholeHogSports.com. The website includes up-to-minute news, daily commentaries, and award-winning photography from the staffs of Hogs Illustrated and the Democrat Gazette. For subscriptions, call 1-800-757-6277. That's 1-800-757-6277. Or visit us online today. WholeHogSports.com.
With almost 30 years in business, the Teague Law Firm can help with most family law and criminal law issues. Call James and the Teague Law Firm at 479-531-2785.
Take a quick look around the SEC, Bubba. Probably the biggest story in the SEC right now is not the teams that are winning big, it's the teams that are losing big. In particular, the last two national champions, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they go into this weekend's game with a combined record of 0-12, and neither of them have particularly looked good. Ole Miss, they looked better this last weekend in a weekend sweep against Florida and Oxford than they had the week before at Vanderbilt. But that's still kind of a low bar because they hadn't looked really good in that Vanderbilt series. And the Mississippi State, it feels like the wheels are just totally falling off of the wagon in Starkville right now. Mississippi State lost their series opener to Vanderbilt the other night, 26-3 in 7 innings. It is amazing to see how far Mississippi State has fallen in the 2 years since the national championship.
It's bad. And when you start looking, you look at the numbers. Now, obviously this number's inflated because of the Friday night game, but Mississippi State, their SEC ERA is 14.9. I mean, it's Ole Miss is 8.7. I mean, they're just not good teams. They're not getting it done at any aspect of the game. And it's hard to believe how you can fall that fast. You talk about Ole Miss last year winning national championship, and now look where they're at. But they were a lot like Arkansas last year. They had a lot of veteran guys. They lost a whole lot of guys. They had to rebuild, and they're just not getting it done. And in Mississippi State, I don't know what's going on at Mississippi State. Lamonis and I mean, with the ballpark they've got there, the history of that team, that organization, how they can be so bad so fast is just amazing to me.
Well, I go back to something we said last week, which is that I think that some teams, once they win that title, they can lose their competitive edge, their fire, whatever you want to call it, and maybe lose the work ethic that it took to win at that high level in the first place. I don't know if that's what's happening at Mississippi State and Ole Miss, but I think it could be a contributing factor to what's happening there. Did you see Ole Miss on Southern Miss on Tuesday night? This is the second time this year that Ole Miss was down in a game and the game gets called off and they don't get a loss because of it. They were playing in Pearl, Mississippi at the Braves minor league facility there, 2-1 in the 4th inning. Southern Miss is ahead, and the umpires call the game off. They say the field is unplayable. Of course, Ole Miss had the game against Louisiana Tech earlier this year where they were behind in the 7th inning. A rain delay comes. They don't tarp the field. Score reverts to the previous inning, and Ole Miss gets a pretty cheap win. I think Ole Miss might be the luckiest 0-6 team in the SEC right now.
If that happens anywhere else, if that happens at a Razorback game and DVH comes out and complains because of the sod, I mean, you can see the sod. They had sodded the field and it hadn't taken yet. So it was, big chunks of sod had slipped up a couple of times in the game. If DVH does that, no one says anything about it. They're like, well, he's just looking out for his player. But Mike Bianco comes out and complains about it when they're already down in a game after what already happened with the tarp incident a couple of weeks ago. Everyone's like, wait, that's just typical Ole Miss crap right there. But yeah, I saw it and I went and looked at the highlights of it, and it was kind of funny that it didn't bother him until it got to the 4th inning, So, but that's typical Ole Miss.
Hey, one other thing that is stood out to me in the SEC, at least through a few weeks, have you noticed the SEC East is 20-4 against SEC West teams this year?
Yeah, we talked about that on the broadcast, how it's just flip-flopped. I don't know if you remember last year, the West dominated last year, with the exception of Tennessee. I mean, the West, we were on top of the world last year, and now it's kind of flip-flopped. The power has.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the top teams in batting, in pitching, runs, they're all from the East, with the exception of LSU. LSU's
Right.
up in the top, but 6 of the 7 6 of the 7 top teams in hitting is from the East, or they're all from the East.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 in pitching are all from the East. It's crazy to see kind of the shift of power, but once again, it's early, and those guys have been playing Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So when they start playing Arkansas and and some of the other teams, I think those numbers will start to even out a little bit, but it is a little bit top heavy pointed to the East, which is a huge surprise.
Well, that was a point that I was going to make, is that Mississippi State and Ole Miss can contribute 0-12 to that record. But you've also got Tennessee. They swept Texas A&M over the weekend. The only West over East series win at this point was Auburn over Georgia last weekend. They won 2-1 in the series. I mean, Kentucky played Alabama. They won 2 of 3. There have been 8 series so far. The East team has taken 7 of them. There have been 5 East over West sweeps. There have not been any West over East sweeps this year. And, to your point, LSU is the dominant team in the conference right now. But if there's a challenger, it feels like it's going to come out of the East. And it feels like it's probably either going to be Tennessee or Florida, because both of those teams have really good weekend rotations. I think none of them are Paul Skeens that are going up against LSU. But Florida, Dollander this weekend, Thursday, they'll play Tennessee. He's maybe the closest thing you have to Skeens in the SEC. But Tennessee's got a really good 3-man rotation. Florida's got a really good 3-man rotation. Tennessee's lineup, maybe not as good as it was last year. Florida's lineup, maybe right there with LSU as the best in the league.
What about Vanderbilt? I mean,
and they're coming on. Yeah. And,
that's
here's the thing about
lineup.
Vanderbilt is that Vanderbilt's record is not as good as other teams right now overall, but Vanderbilt challenged itself more out of conference than any other team did during the preseason. They went to Arlington, just like Arkansas did, and played those 3 Big 12 teams. They played UCLA for 3 in Nashville. They went to Minneapolis and played 3 Big 10 teams, including Maryland and Nebraska, who may be the 2 best or 2 of the best teams in the Big 10. They challenged themselves out of conference, and I think it's shown these first 2 weekends with the way they've laid it on Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think so. But, once again, you look at Vanderbilt, their batting average in conference only is 366. And the LSU's at 312, but you got to that 366 is really inflated because of last weekend versus Mississippi State,
who they played.
So I think that number will definitely go down. But offensively, if you look at Vanderbilt's numbers across the board, they're dominating. But I think it has a lot to do with who they played the first.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, because they were struggling offensively until they got to SEC play. They didn't hit so well in the weekends leading up to the SEC, and that included, I think they were playing Loyola the week before they played in the SEC. Didn't look great that weekend. So I think some of it shows that Ole Miss and Mississippi State are down, or maybe Vanderbilt's just gotten really good and taken advantage of playing those 2 teams the last couple of weeks. One more thing before we get out of SEC talk, Bubba. We mentioned Dylan Cruz. You got a lot of SEC hitters who are just on a tear right now. You got Jack Caglianone at Florida, who leads the country with 17 home runs. Parker Noland of Vanderbilt is on fire. He had a game the other night where he hit 2 grand slams and had 11 RBI. Who do you think is the best hitter in the league right now?
Well, for me, it's Dylan Cruz, the best pure hitter. I mean, I don't think anyone's better than him. I haven't seen it yet. If there's someone out there better than him, I want to see him. But I still say Dylan Cruz is the best in the conference.
Yeah, there's some pretty good freshmen out there, including Kobe Shelton, who we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Alabama freshman, one of their leading hitters this year. I want to tell you that the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast is brought to you in part by the Teague Law Firm. James Teague has joined his father at the law firm, which has been around for nearly 30 years and was voted best of Northwest Arkansas in 2019 and 2021. James can help you with most family law matters, including divorce, custody, child support. He can also help with criminal law, including felony and misdemeanor offenses. If you have an estate need, James at Teague Law Firm can fill your need there too. Teague Law Firm is a full-service law firm where you will talk to actual lawyers. They will call you back and give you their direct sell. Call James and the Teague Law Firm at 479-531-2785. That's 479-531-2785. Or visit them online at teague-law.com. The Teague Law Firm, if we can't help you, we'll talk baseball.
As a former Razorback pitcher, James Teague spent years closing innings. Now he's closing cases. With almost 3 decades in business, the Teague Law Firm can help with most family law issues and criminal law. Call James and the Teague Law Firm at 479-531-2785 or visit them at teague-law.com.
Want more coverage of your home team? Download the Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Check out the Fan Zone and get up-to-the-minute videos, podcasts, and features on football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. Search for Whole Hog Sports on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire at home. And take it with you on the go by downloading it for your mobile device in your app store. The Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Get it today.
Arkansas back in Baum-Walker Stadium this weekend for a 3-game series against Alabama. First game is going to be Friday at 6:30. They'll also play Saturday and Sunday at 2 o'clock. Alabama was in the top 25. They were one of the last remaining undefeated teams up until a couple of weeks ago. Then they lose a series late in non-conference play that really surprised a lot of people to Columbia. And then they've lost both of their SEC series to this point. They played Florida and Kentucky, lost both of those series 2-1. This is an Alabama team that's kind of interesting to me, Bubba, because they always play Arkansas tough, it feels like, tougher than maybe their record indicates. I mean, you think about the games last year that they played down in Tuscaloosa, and then they beat Arkansas the following week in Hoover. Arkansas was not playing its best baseball at the time. But you even think about 2021, when you had the Arkansas team that was maybe the best team Arkansas has ever put out on the field, at least during the regular season. And they beat Arkansas 16-1 in the series opener, play them tough the last couple of games. It just seems like every time under Brad Bohannon that Alabama plays Arkansas, it's a tough series.
Well, you're right. I mean, they really have. Our track history the last couple of years hadn't been very good against them, but that's why I'm glad it's a new year, Matt. And if you look at them, they're a good team, and their starting rotation's pretty good. If you look at the guys they've got, Friday, Saturday, Sunday guy, they're younger guys. It's not like a lot of the pitchers around the conference are all veteran guys. Most of them are veteran guys, but I mean, these guys are. What do we have? I think. Hess and Holman are both sophomores. Grayson Hitt, the Sunday guy's a lefty. He's a junior, so it's not like they have veteran pitchers starting in their starting rotation, but they're guys that are pretty good. So I think I think it's a good match for us coming in this weekend, Matt.
And one of the players Arkansas will see this weekend again is Dominic Tamez, who was here 2 years ago. He's splitting time behind the plate this year with Matt Gussetti, who transferred over from Florida. So he'll make his return to Baum-Walker Stadium. Real quick, before we talk too much about Alabama, I want to go back to the game on Tuesday night against Omaha that Arkansas won 16-3 in 7 innings. A lot of hits. I think they had 14, 15 hits in the game. The Razorbacks did. They walked 9 times. The game was over after the 4th inning. Arkansas scored all their runs in the 4th inning. What were your thoughts from watching Omaha? Because I'll tell you one thing that stood out to me, and we've talked about all these teams that have come through in the midweek that are predicted to win their conference. Omaha did not look nearly as good as those teams like Army and SEMO and some of these others that Arkansas have seen in the midweek.
Here's what I saw, man. I loved our hitters' approach at the plate. Look, you're facing I don't know how to say it mildly. We're facing pitchers that were subpar. They're down on their pitching. They didn't have a whole lot of arms. But I tell you what, our guys battled up and down the lineup. And when you're facing a team like that as a hitter, you're coming off a tough LSU series where you saw, mid 90s just constantly, mid to upper 90s. You're seeing guys you want to hit. You don't want to walk right there. I mean, you're looking to get a base hit. And our guys were patient up and down the lineup, and we're not afraid to take that walk and go to first base. And that's what really stood out to me is we made those guys work, and we didn't chase pitches out of the zone. We just took what they gave us. But when they left the ball over the middle of the plate, which there weren't very many, we hammered it. I look at like a perfect example is Jared Wagner. I think his first 3 at bats, he saw all sliders, just slider, maybe one fastball. And then finally he gets a fastball to hit, and he hits it 108 to center field, just backspun it over the center fielder's head. But those are the kind of at bats that I saw out of this team, and I've seen it all year, and it's really impressive to see these guys go out there and just grind out at bats. And it doesn't matter if they're facing LSU or Omaha, they're up there grinding out at bats, and they just don't give away at bats. And that's what the good hitters do.
Arkansas had some pretty good performances at the plate. Kendall Diggs had a big night. Tavian Josenberger hit a 405-foot home run. That was the 8th time, by the way, in Josenberger's career that he's played Omaha. He's had some good games against them. Played him 7 times when he was at KU previously. One of the things that stood out to me was about a player who didn't play, and it was Brady Slavens was held out last night just to give him some rest, like is typical during the midweek. And Van Horn said after the game, he said, I don't know if he was mad at me or maybe he was just locked in. He said, but it was the best BP that he's seen from Slavens this year.
Okay. Well, I was at BP and he was hammering the ball, Matt. We jokingly say angry swings, and I don't know what it was, but the ball was jumping off of Brady's bat like I have never seen it. And he's got some pop, but I tell you what, he was hammering balls. Every swing he took was with conviction and just smoking balls all over the field. So I agree with DVH. It was the best BP I've seen Brady take all year.
So does that carry over to the weekend?
Yeah, it can. A lot of times, a good BP, and we know Brady's going to hit. I like his patience at the plate this year. He showed a lot more patience. He's getting better pitches. His home run numbers are down, but they're going to come back up. But I think it does. I think a good round of BP, believe it or not, can do a lot for a hitter. I talk a lot about guys in batting practice. Some guys are 5 o'clock cowboys. They can crush the ball at 5 o'clock, but when the lights come on at 7, they're a whole different player. But Brady's one of those guys that I think that can carry over into Friday night, and I expect a big weekend from him.
So the home run numbers are down with Slavens, but the batting average is up. I don't know that we've ever seen his batting average as high as it is this year. I haven't checked this, but I would have to believe the strikeouts are down from what we've seen from him to this point in previous years. And he's on pace to have the most doubles of his career. He leads Arkansas in doubles right now. You're seeing him go the opposite way more with his swing. It just looks like, the home run numbers be dang. The swing is a lot better than it's looked in the past with Slavens.
Oh, 100%. And his approach is better. That's what I like about it, is his approach. There were times that Brady would go up there last year and it's almost like he pre-decided, I'm going to swing right here. And he would go up and he'd swing and get himself behind an account. And Brady, you can tell he kind of wears his emotions on his sleeves. After a bad swing, he'll step out and you can tell he's frustrated. And then that turns into another bad swing and eventually an out. And I don't see that out of him this year. I see him taking those borderline pitches and making the pitcher come into his zone. And he's a guy, when he gets a pitch he can drive, he's going to hurt you. And he showed that ability this year. And, he'll go the other way. If they throw him outside, he can drive it that way, but he could also hit it over the hunt centers. So I've been really impressed with Brady this year, just kind of the maturity he showed at the plate and how his approach has changed.
He seems to me like a little bit of a perfectionist, and that's not the best trait to have when you're a hitter.
You cannot be a perfectionist as a hitter, Matt. There's no perfection when you're hitting a baseball.
Oh.
It's and you're right though. I think he is. I think if he misses a pitch that he thinks he should have crushed, you can see it. You can see it in his body language. And but I think he's got a lot better at it. And when it's all said and done at the end of the year, we're going to look back and say this is Brady's best year.
Arkansas got some good pitching performances against Omaha. Ben Bybee was not his best. I wonder if that might have been a little bit influenced by the fact that he's thrown as many pitches as he has in the last week through 2 innings in the last game against LSU. It's the most pitches that he's thrown over a 7-day span this year. You got an inning apiece from Parker Coyle. You got 2 innings from Gage Wood. Christian Fouch pitched an inning. And then the one that stood out to me was Ben McLaughlin, throwing an 11-pitch inning during the 5th. 8 of those pitches were for strikes. He struck out 2 batters, including the number 3 hitter in the Omaha lineup, who came in with a .489 batting average. Only Dylan Cruz has a better batting average in college baseball. That kind of came out of left field a little bit for me to see McLaughlin out there. I knew he had a little bit of a pitching background. He pitched a little bit at Hutchinson Community College 2 years ago before he had Tommy John surgery. Had decent numbers pitching in high school baseball in Colorado. I don't know that Colorado high school baseball is really that great, but there's a background there. But I thought that given the fact that he hadn't thrown in so long to live hitters, and given the fact that one of the hitters has been red hot for Omaha, I thought it was a pretty impressive outing and pretty impressive inning there for McLaughlin.
No, I thought it was. It was funny is when Ben came in, I asked Phil, I was like, well, I don't remember seeing him as a two-way player. So we're scrambling around to get the media guide, and Phil finds it in there, and he's not listed as a two-way guy on the media guide. And so, I said something on the air about it. People start sending me all his stats from his pitching days. And but it was impressive to see. He really did. He came in, and so to me, position players pitch different. Their arm action's different. He's got the arm action of a position player. He's got a quick arm, like a short release. He's He's got some deception in there. It's hard to pick the ball up out of his hand, but he looked good. He topped out. I want to say he topped out at 93 with one fastball, threw several 91, 92, showed a good slider, but most importantly, he was all around the zone. Every pitch he threw was right around the zone. And I know that's what DVH loves. So, who knows? We might be grooming him to be a guy that can get some innings for us.
Well, I mean, it's a bullet, right? In the
Yeah.
bullpen. It's not going to be the greatest pitcher in the bullpen, but it's a guy that might be able to get you an inning. And I think what's key with him is that he's going to make that 27-man travel roster for SEC weekends because of what he can do as a position player, as a hitter, maybe as a pinch hitter. And now you've got a guy that you might be able to bring in at the back end of a blowout one way or the other and eat up some innings for you, or maybe just an inning. I think it's an interesting development with McLaughlin.
No, I think it is. And I think looking at his arm action, I think he'd be tough on righties, that fastball slider combination that he's got. Of course, he did, he struck out, you mentioned it, he struck out what was
Bovee.
Yeah, Bovee, sorry.
Yep.
And he doesn't strike out very often, but he's a left-handed batter. But yeah, I think he'd be tough on righties and come in and give you an inning. Who knows? It might be something that we're going to keep an eye on down the road. But I was excited to see him come out of the pen and just see what he could do.
I was texting with Oliver Grigg, the sports information director for baseball, last night, and McLaughlin, his nickname that he had gotten from his teammates during the fall and the preseason was Benny Barrels because of his ability to barrel up the baseball. I said, if he's going to become a pitcher, he needs to have a different nickname. Benny Barrels is not the best nickname to have if you're a pitcher. You don't have barrels in your nickname, right?
No, if he's going to be out there on the net, well, you definitely got to change his nickname if he's going to be out there on the mound. You don't want to be Benny Barrels as a pitcher. It's okay as a hitter, but yeah, we got to change that to something else. But that's kind of funny. Well, I texted Oliver when he came out of the pen. I texted him. I said, "Is Ben a pitcher?" So because I just didn't know. I guess I'm not doing very good research because I should know that.
And maybe he could just have a middle name like Benny Missing Barrels if he keeps striking out guys like he was doing last night. But I was really impressed with the way McLaughlin pitched. I think it's hard to come in and pitch against a Division I lineup and then sit them down like that when you haven't been facing live hitters very often. I don't know that people really appreciate how difficult that was to not only have a crisp inning, but to not allow any base runners.
Right. Well, a lot of people say it's like riding a bike, but it's not. I mean, you can throw all the bullpens you want, but when you step out there on the mound and you're facing live hitters, it's different. I don't care what you say. And I thought he did a great job.
We probably won't know Arkansas's rotation until Thursday. The assumption here is that they're probably going to go Hunter Holland game 1, Will McIntyre game 2, leave game 3 TBA with the hopes that maybe Cody Adcock will start. Maybe they don't use Hagen Smith during the first 2 games and they're able to let him start. We'll see how it goes. The combination of Holland and Smith, I asked Holland about this after they beat LSU. I said, do you think that this combination of yourself and Hagen is as good as a Paul Skeens? And, he basically said, yeah, we think we are. That's a tough piggyback, I feel like, for any team to face on a Friday, though, to have Hunter Holland go 5 1/3 like he did at LSU, or 6 innings like he did the week before against Auburn, and then have Hagen Smith come in at the back end. That's a tough ask of anybody to win a Friday night, just like it's a tough ask of anybody to beat Paul Skeens on a Friday.
Absolutely. I tell you, I said it earlier. That's, you're recreating Paul Skeens right there with those 2 guys, and probably better than Paul Skeens, even though they're both lefties. Matt, I talk all the time about how Hunter Holland's on the third base side of the rubber, Hagen Smith's on the right side of the rubber. So even though they're both lefties, that's a totally different look coming into the plate, the shape of their pitches, and the planes that they're pitching on. And so they're totally different, even though they're both lefties. And man, they're just the combination of the 2 of them. And you hate to burn Hagen up on a Friday night, but if you really want to win that Friday night, that's a great combination to go out and get it done.
Real quick, just looking at Alabama here, Bubba, got their stats pulled up here. They're a team that can hit .318 batting average. They're holding teams to a .232 average batting. That's a pretty good number, although I don't know that they've played a great schedule to this point. Certainly nothing like what the Razorbacks have played. They've got some guys on here that, we've seen in the past. Andrew Pinckney, we've seen him. Drew Williamson, we've seen him. Mentioned Matt Gassetti, the catcher who's come over from Florida. Dominic Tomez. Those are names that we know. One of them, though, that has really stood out to me this year has been this freshman, Colby Shelton. I don't know if you've paid a whole lot of attention to him. At one point, I think he was second in the SEC in home runs. He's fallen behind just a little bit because there's so many big home run hitters this year. But these are impressive numbers that Shelton has for a freshman. 329. He's got a 776 slugging, 438 on base. Takes his walks, gets hit by a pitch quite a bit. There's a little bit of a high strikeout number there with him too. But I think this is going to be a challenge for Arkansas with Shelton this weekend.
I think so, but I still say that it's going to be a huge relief facing this lineup compared to what they faced last Saturday or last weekend. But you're right; they've got some bats up and down the lineup. They've got some veteran guys. Like pretty much like every SEC lineup, you're going to have some veteran guys around there. So, I mean, it's going to be it's a challenge for our pitchers. But the thing about this Kobe Shelton, he's got good numbers, but that strikeout number is high. I mean, he's got 25 strikeouts, and if a guy's got 25 strikeout, there's holes in that swing. And I promise you, Hobbs and Zach Barr and those guys, they'll find that hole and the pitchers will execute their pitches. And he might have a rough weekend against us.
He seems like a little bit of a streaky hitter. He didn't have a very big weekend against Florida. And then last week against Kentucky, he had a couple of games where he went hitless. And then he had a game where he went 3 for 4. So it might just depend there on the matchup with him. You mentioned some of Alabama's pitchers. These are guys that we've seen in the past. What do you remember about some of these weekend starters that Arkansas is going to see?
Well, I remember Ben Hess. I remember him being a big, just a big righty. What is he, 6'5", 250? He looks like a Friday night guy. He's got Friday night stuff. He's going to be a good one. Holman, I don't remember a lot about Holman, but look at his numbers. He's got 24 innings, 14 hits. He's been getting it done on the mound. Batting average against him, the opponents are only hitting 165 against Holman. So, he's got good stuff. And then the lefty that they're going to throw at us on, I would assume they're going to stay with that rotation on Sunday. He's got pretty good numbers. The batting average against him is 202. And I look at that a lot, Matt. I look at the batting average against. I want to know, what are guys doing against these guys? I mean, the strikeout numbers, has big strikeout numbers. You got 44 strikeouts, 6 walks. So, he's going to be around the plate. But, I think they got a pretty good starting rotation. If you look at what they did last week against Kentucky, Ben Hess went 6 1/3, 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 10 Ks. Luke Holman only went 3 innings, 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 2 Ks. And then Hit was good on Sunday, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs. So, I mean, they're pretty solid there. But, I think the key is what we've done all year. We've showed the ability to really grind out at bats and get that starting pitcher out of the game and get to their bullpen. And I think that's the key to beating Alabama, is getting these guys out of the game and getting into their bullpen early.
They're capable. I mean, they took Kentucky down to the wire in a game that they lost. They had a game against Florida. I believe it was the second game or the series, which was the first game of a doubleheader, where Florida scored twice in the 9th inning to beat Alabama. Otherwise, Alabama might have taken that series because they won the back end of the doubleheader that night. And they pitched Florida really well in the first game. It's just Florida's pitcher had a 1-hitter. Brandon Sproats did against them in the series opener. So they're capable. But I think there's something to be said, Bubba, for challenging yourself out of conference. And one thing that really stands out to me as I look at Arkansas and Alabama right now, according to Warren Nolan, Arkansas's non-conference strength of schedule is ranked 63rd nationally. Alabama's is ranked 220th. They just didn't challenge themselves out of conference. And I think sometimes that's a big difference early in conference play when, say, a team like, Arkansas has seen better teams to that point than maybe a team than Alabama has.
Oh, I think it makes a huge difference. And I think the schedule that DVH put together this year is awesome, getting them ready for SEC play. And I don't know that we fully did that last year, but I love our strength of schedule so far going into this part of the season. And, and that's why you look at some of these guys' numbers, Hess, some of his numbers, they're better than what they're going to be, because they haven't faced the teams that Arkansas faced. But, we know that if you look at their scores against Kentucky, they lost 4-3, they won lost 9-5, and then they won the last one. They came from behind to win 4-3 on Sunday to avoid a sweep. But they're competitive games, so we know they're going to be a good squad.
I teased this earlier. I forgot to get to it. Reese Robinette's home run against LSU. That was Arkansas's first pinch hit home run since Charlie Welch at the 2021 regional against Nebraska, the home run that everybody remembers that essentially put that game away a couple of years ago. The Robinette, he just doesn't look like anything phases him, does it?
Well, I think Big Country's a perfect moniker for him. He really doesn't. He just kind of goes about his business. Watched him take ground balls at third base yesterday. I watched him take BP, and he's just kind of even keel. And when he came up in that situation in the 10th inning, it was just another day at the park for him. And boy, he got a pitch down and away. It was actually a pretty good pitch, and stayed behind it and drove it out of the park. If you could do that in the 10th inning and slow your motor down and just keep the game, just slow the game down like that in that situation, your first SEC at bat, that's pretty impressive. So I really like, and Ben McDonald was comparing him to a Hessen Kerstad. So that's pretty good props right there for Reese Robinette.
Doesn't help that he wears number 18 and bats left-handed. That wasn't a bad pitcher that he hit that home run off against either. That's Christian Little, who 2 years ago at the World Series, everybody was saying this is the next Kumar Rocker, transferred to LSU from Vanderbilt. So Little didn't have his stuff the other day, but man, he put a fastball right down the middle of the plate, and Robinette crushed it. That was an eye-opening at bat, I think, for me, to see Robinette come up in that situation, in that ballpark against that team and that pitcher, and have that kind of success. One more thing before we get out of here. Arkansas last night beating Omaha, 15-game winning streak now at Baum-Walker Stadium. They're 18-1 at home this year. They've been good pretty much wherever they play. If you take away that last day against LSU, maybe the second game against TCU this year, they've not had a whole lot of bad games. But what do you think has made them so good in this ballpark?
I think it's just a comfort level. I mean, guys love baseball players are a creature of habit. They like being at home. They like being at the Hunt Center. They like their diet when they're at home. Everything about being home just feels good. And then you walk out there at Baum Stadium, you got the fans behind you. Even though the weather's been really bad so far early this year, we still had some pretty good crowds. I'm hoping we really pack that place in Friday night. The weather looks good Friday night. It should be in the 70s, so hopefully we'll fill out Baum Walker. But I think it's a lot of just being comfortable, Matt. The pitchers are comfortable on the mound. Hitters are comfortable in the box. There's something about stepping up to the plate in your home ballpark and just feeling good. And it's a mental game, and it carries over from there.
Isn't that amazing how that works? Their diet is better when they're at home. It seems like my diet and your diet are worse when we get over to the ballpark here in Fayetteville.
Mine is terrible. It's so bad. If we had, like last night against Omaha, if we had games like that, I'd weigh 500 pounds. I think it wasn't I enjoy watching our at bats and how we grind out, but there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't a lot of, it felt more like an inter squad to me. And so, I'm sitting there and I'm on the air, and between innings, I'm eating and just snacking on something to try to stay focused. But yeah, it's better for the guys to be at home, and it's just a comfort level. And look, I mean, who wouldn't love playing at Baum Walker? And I really think the Hunt Center has a lot to do with it. Everything they've got inside there, just all the comforts of home inside that building. I think that helps a lot with these guys playing at home.
I'd be better at the ballpark if somebody would put a water in front of me and then buckle me into my chair where I couldn't get up and walk around and have options. Maybe you can do that. Bring a padlock next time and throw away the key. Arkansas at Alabama on Friday night, 6:30, Saturday at 2, Sunday at 2. Bubba mentioned the weather. It's supposed to be kind of stormy early Friday morning. I think that'll move out by the nighttime, and there won't be any disruptions this weekend. We sure hope not. We'd like to see kind of a normal schedule. We haven't had that yet this year. You can come to WholeHogSports.com this weekend and read our coverage from the Razorbacks and the Crimson Tide. Of course, you can listen to Bubba on all the radio broadcasts with Phil Elson on the Razorback Sports Network. We'll be back next week to look back at the Alabama series, also midweek game against Arkansas State, and look ahead to the following week. Always one of our favorite series to preview is Ole Miss with Bubba. Can't wait to hear his thoughts on the Rebels expanded next week. For Bubba, I'm Matt Jones. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast.
The proceeding has been a production of WholeHogSports.com. Look for our latest podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast store. And visit us anytime at wholehogsports.com for the latest news and commentary.